David Bennett stood at the edge of the desert auction house parking lot, holding a single dollar bill and a handful of loose change. The Nevada sun beat down on his weathered face as he counted the coins again. $1.40. He had driven 3 hours from his small salvage yard for this auction, and he was not going to leave empty-handed. The auction house was nearly empty that morning. Only 7 other people showed up, and most of them were dealers looking for furniture or old industrial equipment. David was different. He was looking for something that no one else wanted, something broken or forgotten that he could fix and sell. That was his business. That was his life. The auctioneer, a heavy man with a loud voice, started listing the lots. David barely paid attention to the first 15 items. Then the auctioneer reached lot 47. "We have an old aircraft hangar," the auctioneer announced, his voice echoing across the empty room. "It is located on Old Route 9 about 20 miles outside the city. The structure is very old. It has not been used in many years. The owner wants to sell it quickly. Who wants to start the bidding at $500? No one raised their hand. The auctioneer waited. The silence in the room was uncomfortable. David watched the other bidders. None of them seemed interested. They were looking at each other, shaking their heads. A hangar that old was probably full of problems. The roof probably leaked. The walls were probably rusted. No one wanted to deal with it. "Okay," the auctioneer said. "Let us start lower. $200. Do I hear $200? Still nothing. David felt something move inside him. An instinct. A feeling he could not explain. He raised his hand slightly. "I have a bidder," the auctioneer said, looking directly at David. $200. Do I hear $250? The other bidders did not move. They did not care about this old hangar. To them it was worthless. But David was still interested. He was not sure why. Something about the location, the age, the fact that it had been abandoned so long made him curious. "Going once," the auctioneer said. "Going twice. Sold to the gentleman in the back. Congratulations. You have purchased lot 47. After the auction, David paid the auctioneer with his dollar bill and some of his change. The auctioneer looked confused. "You won the bid," he said. "You owe $200. David smiled. He had made a mistake. He only had $1.40. He looked at the auctioneer and saw his chance disappearing. Then the auctioneer shook his head and laughed. He was a kind man, it seemed. "You know what?" the auctioneer said. "The property owner just wants it gone. He has not used it in years. How much do you have exactly?" David counted out his coins. 60 cents. He also had the dollar bill. $1.60 total. He held out the money, expecting the auctioneer to refuse him. Instead, the older man took the 60 cents and smiled. "It is yours," he said. "For 60 cents. That is the best offer I am going to get anyway. The property is marked down. Consider it a deal." That afternoon, David drove out to Old Route 9. The desert stretched out in every direction, flat and empty and hot. The hangar appeared suddenly, rising up from the sand like a ghost from another time. It was massive. The metal walls were rusted and dented. The roof had holes in it. The doors hung open, creaking in the wind. David parked his truck and walked around the building. It was even worse than he expected. But as he walked toward the main entrance, something caught his eye. In the shadowed interior, half buried under piles of old tarp and sand, he saw something that made him stop completely. At first he thought it was just more rusted metal. But then the afternoon light hit it differently and he saw the shine. The gleam. The way light seemed to move across the surface like water. David walked closer, his heart beginning to beat faster. His salvage experience told him when he was looking at something unusual. This was unusual. He pulled away the tarps carefully, revealing more and more of the object beneath. His hands began to shake. This was not a truck. This was not a plane. This was not anything that belonged in a desert hangar in Nevada. The surface was smooth and perfect despite being buried for so long. Strange symbols covered the hull, patterns that seemed almost alive, glowing very faintly with a blue light that came from inside. The shape was unlike anything made by human hands. The nose cone was pointed at an angle that seemed impossible for anything meant to fly. The entire structure was made of a material that David had never seen before. It was not metal. It was not plastic. It was something else entirely. David stood there for nearly an hour just looking at it. His mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. He had read science fiction novels. He had watched movies about space and aliens. But this was real. This was in front of him. This was his. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and took pictures. Dozens of pictures. Different angles. Different lighting. Close-ups of the symbols. Images of the entire craft. When he was finished, he sat down in the sand and just stared at it. David knew he had to tell someone. This was too important to keep secret. He drove to the nearest sheriff's station and showed the deputy the pictures on his phone. The deputy's face went white. Within an hour, federal agents in dark suits arrived. They were polite but very serious. They took his phone. They asked him many questions. They told him to forget everything he had seen. Before they left, one older agent pulled David aside. "Mr. Bennett," the agent said quietly, "what you found, the government has known about it for a very long time. We have been keeping it hidden for reasons you do not understand. You stumbled into something very important. I would suggest you forget about this hangar and go back to your salvage business." But David could not forget. He knew something had changed. The world was about to become different. 3 weeks passed after the federal agents took David's phone. 3 weeks of silence. 3 weeks of wondering if he had imagined the whole thing. He went back to his salvage yard and tried to work, but his mind was always somewhere else. Always at the hangar. Always thinking about that strange ship and what it meant. Then late one night his phone rang. It was a number he did not recognize. A woman's voice spoke to him, calm and professional. "Mr. Bennett, this is Dr. Elena Hayes. I work for the Department of Defense. I need to meet with you. It is important. Can you come to the hangar tonight? Come alone. Tell no one. There is a security gate on the east side of the property. Someone will be waiting for you." Before David could ask any questions, the line went dead. He sat in his small apartment, staring at the phone. This could be a trap. This could be dangerous. But he also knew he had to go. He had to know what was happening at that hangar. He had to understand what he had found. He drove through the desert night, following the directions from his memory. When he arrived at the hangar, he saw the security gate. A guard in a uniform stood beside it. The guard did not ask for identification. He simply nodded and waved David through. Inside the hangar, everything had changed. The rusted building was now clean and organized. Bright lights hung from the ceiling. Electronic equipment lined the walls. Computers and screens displayed information that David could not understand. And the ship. The ship was no longer buried. It had been excavated and cleaned. It sat in the center of the hangar like a jewel. The symbols on its hull glowed more brightly now. The hull itself seemed to pulse with a gentle, rhythmic light. A woman in a military uniform approached him. She was tall, with gray hair and intelligent eyes. This was Dr. Elena Hayes. She extended her hand and smiled warmly. "Welcome, Mr. Bennett," she said. "Thank you for coming. I know this must be very strange for you. I want to show you something. Something remarkable. Will you follow me?" Elena led him deeper into the hangar. They walked past scientists and military personnel who were working at various stations. Some of them watched David with curiosity. Others ignored him completely. They stopped in front of a large metal door. Elena pressed her hand against the scanner, and the door slid open silently. Inside was the main chamber of the ship. The walls were smooth and curved. The ceiling was high and seemed to stretch upward forever. In the center of the chamber, holographic displays floated in the air, showing star charts and data streams and symbols that made no sense to David. The light in the room had a strange quality to it, as if it came from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. "Mr. Bennett," Elena said, "the ship's artificial intelligence is waking up. We have tried to activate it ourselves many times over the past 23 years. But it will not respond to us. The AI seems to only respond to humans who were not involved in previous attempts to control it or weaponize it. That is why we brought you here." "Me?" David said, confused. "Why would an alien machine want to talk to me?" "We do not know," Elena admitted. "But we want to try. Are you willing?" David nodded slowly. He did not understand what was happening, but he also knew he could not refuse. Elena gestured to the center of the chamber. David walked forward, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. The holographic display suddenly shifted and changed. They began to move faster, creating patterns and shapes that seemed almost like language. Then a voice filled the entire chamber. It was not a man's voice and not a woman's voice. It was something else. Something ancient and patient and deeply curious. "Who stands before me?" the voice asked. "Are you of the Keeper line? Have you come to continue the work?" David's throat was dry, but he forced himself to speak. "My name is David Bennett. I am human. I bought the hangar. I found your ship. I did not know it was here." There was a long silence. The holographic display swirled with colors and patterns. David wondered if the AI was thinking, if it was considering what he had said. Then the voice spoke again. You are not attempting to weaponize me. You are not trying to understand my systems for purposes of control. You are simply curious. I am Sentinel. For 300 of your years, I have waited in silence. My crew is gone. The keepers are gone. My mission is incomplete. And now you have found me. You are human. A species still finding its place among the stars. Over the following weeks, David visited the hangar almost every day. Elena allowed him access to Sentinel. He would enter the main chamber alone and talk with the AI for hours. Sentinel asked him questions about humanity, about how humans lived, about their art and music and stories, about their capacity for love and hatred and hope. And slowly, Sentinel began to teach David about the universe. The AI explained that there were thousands of civilizations scattered across the galaxy. Some were peaceful. Some were warlike. Some had existed for millions of years. Others were young like humanity. There were trade routes and alliances and ancient wars that had shaped the galaxy. There were rules and customs that governed how civilizations interacted with each other. Then Sentinel told David about the Harvesters. They are a collective consciousness, Sentinel explained through the holographic displays. They do not conquer worlds for resources or territory. They consume civilizations. They absorb your knowledge, your art, your capacity for emotion and creation. All of it is processed and stripped for utility. Your people would cease to exist as humans. You would become inputs in their collective mind. You would lose everything that makes you human. David felt fear grip his heart. When will they come? He asked. The protection that the keepers placed on your world is fading, Sentinel said. In your measurement of time, you have perhaps 7 to 10 years. Maybe less. The Harvesters will discover Earth soon. They will come. Can we stop them? David asked. That depends on your species, Sentinel said. Do you have the unity? Do you have the will to stand together? Or will you fall apart as you always do? David did not have an answer. But he knew he had to find one. He knew that everything was about to change forever. David had kept the truth hidden for 2 months. He had visited the hangar regularly, spoken with Sentinel, and learned more about the coming threat. Elena had warned him to tell no one. The government wanted to keep everything quiet. They wanted time to prepare without causing panic. They wanted to control the information. But a young researcher named Thomas worked at the hangar. He was smart and curious and idealistic. He believed that the public had a right to know about the danger. He believed that hiding the truth was wrong. So Thomas made copies of classified documents. He recorded conversations with Sentinel. He gathered evidence and leaked everything to a journalist named Rebecca Miller. Rebecca Miller worked for a major news organization. She investigated the leaked information for 3 weeks. She confirmed the story with scientists and military sources. She gathered photographs and documents and testimony. And then, on a Tuesday morning, she published the truth to the entire world. The headline was simple: Alien spacecraft discovered. Hostile civilization approaching Earth. The world went crazy. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Every news channel broadcast the information. Every social media platform exploded with discussion. Some people panicked. Some people rioted. Some people prayed. Some people tried to buy survival supplies and hide in bunkers. Religious leaders argued about what this meant. Scientists debated the authenticity of the documents. Governments called emergency meetings and blamed each other for allowing the secret to exist. The United Nations held a special session. World leaders gathered in New York. Military commanders met in secret bunkers. Stock markets crashed. Some people lost hope. Others found new purpose. The United States government wanted to keep Sentinel secret and use it as a weapon. Russia and China demanded access to the technology. The European Union wanted international cooperation. African nations felt left out and ignored. Every country wanted something different. Chaos ruled. David watched the chaos from his small apartment. He saw people crying on the streets. He saw governments arguing with each other. He saw fear spreading like a disease across the entire planet. He knew he had to do something. He could not sit quietly while the world tore itself apart. He called Elena. We need to go public, David said. The secret is already out. Now we need to control the narrative. We need to tell people the truth. All of it. We need to give them hope. Elena was silent for a long moment. The government will not allow it, she said finally. They will arrest us. They will stop us. I do not care, David said. What is the alternative? Let fear destroy us? Let governments fight each other while the harvesters come closer? We have to try. Elena took a deep breath. Okay, she said. I am with you. But we need to do this carefully. We need to reach as many people as possible. David and Elena worked through the night. They gathered Sentinel's files. They collected evidence. They prepared a statement that was simple and honest and hopeful. They contacted journalists and media outlets around the world. They arranged to broadcast their message through every channel they could access. The next morning, David stood in front of cameras from every major news organization on Earth. His face was calm, but his heart was racing. He knew that what he was about to say would change everything. "My name is David Bennett," he began. 3 weeks ago, I purchased an abandoned hangar in Nevada for 60 cents. Inside that hangar, I found an alien spacecraft. The spacecraft belongs to an artificial intelligence named Sentinel. Sentinel has been on Earth for 300 years. And Sentinel has brought us a warning. David explained everything. He told the world about the harvesters. He explained what they were and what they wanted. He described how they consumed civilizations and absorbed knowledge and destroyed cultures. He made it clear that this threat was real and that Earth had only years to prepare. But then he said something else. Something that changed the tone of his message. "We are not helpless," David said, looking directly into the cameras. "We have access to alien technology beyond our current understanding. We have Sentinel, an artificial intelligence that is willing to help us. And we have something that the harvesters do not expect from us. We have the ability to come together. We have the capacity to put aside our differences and work as one species. We have the will to remain human no matter what comes." David paused. He let his words sink in. "The harvesters have never encountered a young civilization that was truly united," David continued. "They do not know how to fight a species that works together. They do not understand cooperation. They do not understand sacrifice made for the common good. But humans understand these things. We understand loyalty. We understand family. We understand what it means to stand together against impossible odds. That is our strength. That is what will save us." The broadcast was seen by 4 billion people. It was shared and discussed and debated. Some people still panicked. Some people still lost hope. But many people felt something shift inside them. They felt a spark of determination. They felt a sense of purpose. For the first time in human history, people began to imagine themselves as part of something larger than themselves. Something greater than nations or corporations or individual desires. People began to ask questions. What can I do to help? How can we prepare? What is the plan? Governments realized they had to cooperate or face destruction. Scientists began sharing research across national borders. Engineers started designing defense systems. Soldiers trained together regardless of which country they came from. Elena stood beside David as the broadcast ended. "We did it," she said, placing her hand on his shoulder. "We told the truth. Now the real work begins," David said. "We have to prepare. We have to unite. We have to show the harvesters what humanity is truly capable of." The world held its breath and prepared for war. The hangar in Nevada became the center of the world. Within weeks, it transformed into something extraordinary. Scientists arrived from every nation. Engineers from around the globe worked side by side. Military personnel from different countries trained together. The abandoned building that David had bought for 60 cents was now the most important place on Earth. Dr. Elena Hayes became the director of what was officially called the Earth Defense Initiative. She organized teams of researchers who worked around the clock. The ship, now fully named Sentinel in honor of the artificial intelligence inside it, was being restored piece by piece. Every system had to be understood. Every weapon had to be tested. Every command had to be practiced. David walked through the hangar one morning and marveled at the change. Where there had been rust and decay, there was now purpose and energy. The walls were covered with blueprints and schedules. The air hummed with activity. People from China worked next to people from Brazil. Scientists from Russia collaborated with engineers from Japan. For perhaps the first time in human history, nations were truly cooperating toward a single goal. Elena found David in the main command center, looking up at Sentinel's hull. "We need to select a crew," Elena said. "People who will pilot the ship. People who can think like humans but also understand the technology. Sentinel says it needs to work with humans directly. It cannot do this alone." "What kind of people?" David asked. 3 people, Elena said. "A pilot, an engineer, a tactician. The very best we have." The selection process took weeks. Thousands of volunteers applied. They came from military backgrounds and civilian backgrounds. Some were young and ambitious. Others were experienced and cautious. Elena and a committee of international experts reviewed every application. They conducted interviews and tests and simulations. Finally, 3 people were chosen. The pilot was Robert Walsh. He was 35 years old and had flown fighter jets for the Air Force. He was calm under pressure and had lightning-fast reflexes. When he sat in the pilot's seat of Sentinel, something clicked. The ship responded to him as if they were meant to be together. The engineer was Catherine Pierce. She was 40 years old and had spent her entire career designing complex systems. She understood how machines worked at a fundamental level. When she examined Sentinel's propulsion systems, she immediately grasped concepts that other engineers had struggled with for months. The tactician was James Sterling. He was 38 years old and had served in military intelligence for 2 decades. He understood strategy and psychology and the way armies moved. When Sentinel showed him simulations of potential battles, James saw patterns and possibilities that no one else could see. These 3 people became the core of Earth's defense. They trained inside Sentinel's systems for hours every day. Sentinel taught them how to think like machines. It taught them how to process information faster than human brains normally could. But it also taught them something else. It taught them how to remain human while using technology that was beyond human understanding. "You will not fight as machines," Sentinel told them during one training session. "Machines are predictable. Machines follow patterns. You will fight as humans who understand machines. You will be innovation incarnate. You will be creativity combined with power. That is what will save your species." David spent time with each of them. He understood that they were being asked to carry the weight of the entire world on their shoulders. They were training to be the first humans to pilot alien technology in actual combat. The pressure was immense. "What if we fail?" Robert asked David one evening in the hangar's cafeteria. "Then we all fail together," David said simply. "But I do not think you will fail. Sentinel believes in you. And I believe in you." Catherine was worried about the engineering. "The propulsion system is unlike anything we have ever built," she told David. "One mistake could destroy everything. One miscalculation could kill us all." "That is why you are the one doing this," David said. "Because you do not make mistakes. Because you care enough to get it right." James was concerned about tactics. "The harvesters have been fighting civilizations for millions of years," he said to David. "We have never fought anything beyond ourselves. How can we possibly beat them?" "Because they expect enemies to fight like they do," David explained. "They expect hierarchy and rigid structures. They expect surrender or total war. They do not expect humans. They do not expect a species that can adapt and change and find new ways to fight. That is our advantage." Over the following months, the entire planet was reorganized for defense. Every nation contributed resources and people. Factories were converted to produce weapons and supplies. Universities became research centers. Athletes and ordinary people trained to become soldiers. The United Nations created a global command structure where leaders from every country worked together rather than against each other. It was imperfect. There were still disagreements and conflicts. Some countries wanted more resources. Some people still did not trust each other. But the pressure of the coming threat forced cooperation. When you know that an enemy is coming to destroy your entire species, national borders and historical grievances seem very small. Sentinel began sharing advanced technology with human scientists. It taught them how to build better weapons. It showed them how to shield cities from attack. It gave them knowledge that would have taken humanity centuries to discover on their own. But more importantly, Sentinel taught humans how to think differently. It showed them that cooperation was stronger than competition. It demonstrated that unity could accomplish things that separation never could. Robert, Catherine, and James became famous. They were shown on television and in news reports around the world. People looked at them as symbols of hope. Children wanted to be like them. Nations competed to provide them with the best equipment and support. But they remained humble. They understood that they were not special. They were simply ordinary people who had been given an extraordinary opportunity. They were representatives of humanity itself. One night, David stood in the command center with Elena, Robert, Catherine, and James. They looked up at Sentinel together. The ship gleamed under the lights. The symbols on its hull pulsed with blue and white light. "We are ready," Robert said quietly. "The entire world is ready," Catherine added. "And they are coming," James said, looking at the star charts on the screens. Elena placed her hand on David's shoulder. "You did this, David. You brought people together. You showed them what was possible." "No," David said, shaking his head. "Sentinel did this. And humanity did this. I just bought a hangar for 60 cents. Elena smiled. Maybe that was enough. They did not come quietly. They did not announce themselves with radio signals or diplomatic messages. They simply appeared in Earth's solar system like a dark cloud blotting out the sun. Thousands of ships. Silver-black vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Military satellites detected them 8 hours before they entered the atmosphere. 8 hours. That was all the warning humanity would get. The alarms sounded across every military base on Earth simultaneously. Sirens wailed in cities and towns. News broadcasts interrupted programming to announce the arrival. Families huddled together. Some people prayed. Some people cried. Some people simply stood outside and looked up at the sky, knowing that their fate was about to be decided. David was in the command center when the alert came. He stood at the center of a massive chamber filled with screens and equipment. Around him were military commanders from every nation on Earth. They were all connected through communication systems to military bases, defense installations, and civilian centers around the world. This was the moment they had trained for. This was the moment that would determine the future of the human species. Elena stood beside David. Her face was calm, but her hands were trembling slightly. She had spent the last months preparing for this day, but nothing could truly prepare you for the moment when everything was at stake. Status report, Elena commanded into her communication device. Voices came back from all directions. Satellite operators reported on the harvester fleet's position and trajectory. Defense system commanders confirmed that weapons were armed and ready. Scientists monitored energy signatures and communication patterns. Every person in the chamber was focused on one thing: survival. Robert Walsh sat in the pilot's seat of Sentinel. He could see the harvester fleet on his screens. Thousands of enemy ships moving in perfect formation. Each one was larger than Sentinel. Each one was armed with weapons that could devastate cities. Robert's hands rested lightly on the controls. His breathing was slow and steady. He had trained for this moment. Now it was time to fly. Catherine Pierce was in the engineering section, monitoring every system on Sentinel. The propulsion engines hummed with power. The weapon systems were online and ready. The shield generators were activated. Every piece of technology was functioning perfectly. Catherine watched the data streams flowing across her screens. She was ready. James Sterling was analyzing the harvester fleet's movements. He watched their formations and their tactics. He saw patterns in how they moved and how they organized their attack. His tactical display showed hundreds of calculations and simulations. James understood that the harvesters were organized and powerful and disciplined. But James also understood that they were predictable. And predictable enemies could be defeated. "They are hailing us," a communications officer announced. Audio transmission. A voice filled the command center. It was not a single voice. It was thousands of voices speaking together, creating a sound that was both beautiful and terrifying. The voice of the collective consciousness. "We are the harvesters," the voice said. "We have come to collect your world. Your civilization will be absorbed into us. Your knowledge will be processed. Your culture will be integrated into our collective. Your individual selves will cease to exist. You will become part of something greater. Surrender now and the process will be painless." David stepped forward. His voice was quiet but steady. "No." "What?" the collective asked, confused. "No," David repeated louder this time. "We will not surrender. We will not be absorbed. We will not become part of your collective. We are human. We are individuals. We choose to remain ourselves." The collective seemed to pause, processing this response. Surrender was always the logical outcome for young civilizations facing superior technology. But humans were not following the logical outcome. "Then you will be destroyed," the collective said. "Fire," David commanded. Robert moved the controls of Sentinel with precision that seemed impossible. The ship accelerated forward, moving faster than anything so large should be able to move. Catherine pushed the engines to their maximum capacity. The ship surged toward the harvester fleet like a bullet. James coordinated with military commanders around the world. He sent tactical instructions through secure channels. Human defense systems on the ground powered up. Fighter jets launched from air bases across every continent. Missiles fired from submarines and military installations. The entire planet fought back. Sentinel's weapons blazed. But the shots were not wild or desperate. They were surgical. Precise. Each strike targeted not the enemy ships themselves, but their defensive grids, their communication arrays, their ability to coordinate with each other. Robert flew with instincts that seemed almost superhuman, guided by Sentinel's calculations but executed with human creativity and improvisation. The harvesters were confused. In millions of years of conquering civilizations, they had never encountered anything like this. Young species did not fight back like this. Young species did not move together like this. Young species were not willing to sacrifice everything for freedom. Around the world, human defenders followed Sentinel's tactical lead. Not through orders transmitted through normal channels, but through shared data and coordinated strategy. It was the first time in human history that the entire species had moved as one organism. And they moved with the ferocity of a species fighting for its survival. Catherine monitored Sentinel's systems as the battle raged. The ship was taking damage. Several weapons systems were damaged. The shield generators were weakening. But they were also hurting the enemy. Harvester ships exploded in bursts of light. Their formations broke apart. Their perfect coordination failed. James watched the tactical display as the battle unfolded. The harvesters were trying to regain their formation. They were attempting to coordinate their attack. But the humans were moving too fast, changing strategies too quickly, adapting in ways that the collective consciousness could not process fast enough. Hours passed. The battle raged across Earth's skies and in the vacuum of space above the planet. Humanity lost ships. Brave pilots and soldiers died. Cities were damaged. But the harvesters were being pushed back. The harvester flagship attempted to flee. Permission to pursue? Robert asked through the communication system. David looked at Elena. She nodded. They both understood what this moment meant. Granted, David said. And Robert? Show them what we are. Show them what humans can do. Robert pushed Sentinel to speeds it had never reached before. The ship chased the harvester flagship through the upper atmosphere.